What's up, y'all? It's Chris. Gael is shopping right now. I'm in a parking lot, so I figured why not make a quick video. This video is going to be about my headlights. If you saw in other videos I've explained before that I changed out my OEM headlights for an aftermarket set that has an RGB setting, so I can change the colors of them. This video is, I'm going to explain what it looks like, what the features it does. There's an app that I can use to change the colors. I'm going to explain all of that. And then, most importantly, I want to explain my personal experience with these headlights. The short answer is I would not recommend that anyone do this. Again, this is going to be my personal experience. If you've had a good experience with these headlights, great. I'm not, trying to, make anyone feel like what they bought for their car is wrong, and I'm explaining my experience, and I would prefer that people don't have the same problems that I've had, which is why I'm going to explain this. So let's get right to it. I have these two phones to show you guys how to change the lights, what they look like. Change the colors of the lights. So this is what they look like. The fact that it's kind of like buzzing like this is just an optical illusion. It's just something, if I understand, it has something to do with the frame rate of the camera that I'm using. It does not buzz like this to the naked eye. It's just it might look like it's kind of like, I don't know, like moving up and down. It doesn't do that. It's a solid color in real life. I think it probably is like more clearish or white looking. We'll get to the fact that it's not actually white to the naked eye, but that's a separate part of this video. So as far as changing the headlights, I'm gonna have to use my other phone. So there's an app that I use called Magic Light. This is what it looks like. Magic Light. Oops. And then I have two options. I can change the rings or the eyelid. So the rings, of course, are these here, and this is the eyelid. As you can see, there's a part missing. That's another part of the video I'm going to explain. But let's get back to changing the colors. So I'm going to start with the eyelid. So you tap on it, it shows you this RGB circle. And then what I can do is I can move it around. I don't know if you can tell, yeah, because it's daytime right now. So I have it on green a little bit. I'm gonna move it to blue, a little bit red, pinkish, now firmly red, orange, yellow, and so on. And again, in person, this is a solid color. The video is just a little distorted due to the frame rate and so on. So, or the shutter speed and the frame rate, all that stuff. So yeah, you can change it around, and then also you can have preset options. I'm gonna change it to blue, then orange, red, and I think I have this one set to kind of like my white, so to speak, but it's not really white. Again, I'm gonna get to that in another part of the video. Now let's change the rings. Same concept. There's an RGB circle. You can move it around. It's blue, kind of greenish blue. Now it's green. So you can move it around, and you can do this while you're driving. The car can be on and stuff like that, and so on. And then same like before, I can just do quick options I can set and quickly change it. And then there's some other options here like brightness. I don't really play around with that one too much. And then you can have them warm, like how warm you want them to be. I don't want to change this because I like the option that I have here. You can have it do it. But yeah, you can have disco settings and so on. Now, actually I want to put it back to the way that I had it before. So I like to put it kind of whitish. Probably looks a little yellow to you guys because it is yellow, and that's part of the video that I'm going to explain, which is a problem. And so on. Now I'm going to explain the historical context. And to be honest, I was kind of struggling with how I wanted to explain the situation without pointing fingers and sound like a disgruntled customer and so on and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to explain it truthfully and simply how the situation panned out from a neutral standpoint. I'm going to try to temper my emotions because deep down I am upset with how everything went down. But anyway, context. I bought the headlights in June of 2023. It's from a company called OneEighty. They're based in Brooklyn, or they were based in Brooklyn at the time that I bought it, but then they moved to Staten Island. The cost of the headlights are $4,750. $1,800 of that is I wanted them to source a set of headlights from another vehicle so that they don't have to modify the one that was on the car at the time. So for example, my wing, what I did is I had my brother get me a new trunk because I don't like people to damage the stuff that came with the car, because if something goes wrong, such as in this situation, I want to have the option to put back on the original parts. So Out of the 4,750, 1,800 was for them to source. They went and did the sourcing for me, which is great, and I'm appreciative of that. They sourced it from another car, I think it was crashed or something like that. Then work on that set of headlights and gave me back my original ones so I can put them in storage. So 2,950 was the cost of the work, the labor, the parts, all that stuff. And let me just go back to the headlights real quick. So it was actually maybe 2,750. I think 200 of it was to make the headlights blacked out, like the housing is blacked out. Normally it would be like chrome or white or something like that. As I mentioned, they were in Brooklyn at the time. I lived nowhere near Brooklyn at the time that I bought it. I was actually in New Jersey, so it was like a huge effort to come down, and because you have to drop off the car. They only work Monday to Friday from like 8 a.m. to like 5 p.m. or something like that. So you have to take off time from work to drop off the car and pick it up. That's expected, right? The problem is the number of times I had to go back because something was wrong. I picked up the car after like 3 or 4 days. You know, when I went to the shop, I immediately looked at the headlights and I was wondering like, it looks a little blue. You know, why does it look like that? And then, you know, he showed me like, oh, you can use this app to change the colors. I'm like, okay, cool. So while he's talking and stuff like that, I'm just playing around with it. I'm looking at it and I'm trying to make the headlights white again. I'm already very, very familiar with how RGB works, conceptually speaking. The way RGB works is you have 3 colors, red, green, and blue, which are what we call primary colors. And you can use those primary colors and different hues and so on of those colors to make practically any color that the human eye can perceive. So the way it works is you have a range between 0 and 255. Then for each of the R, G, and B, or the red and green and blue, you can change the value to be 0, 192, 198, 45, whatever, for up until 255, right? So basically there are 16 million possible colors that you could make with an RGB scale, because you have 255 to the power of 3, or more clearly 255 for red, 255 for green, 255 for blue. In that range, there's white, which is when you set all of the RGB values to the right, or to the value of 255. So you should be able to make white. I was doing that in the shop and I was trying to figure out like, why does it still look blue? When I put them all the way to the right, it should make the color white, but it was making blue. And the reason why I want it to be white is because that's the stock color of headlights. Like light is normally white to our eyes, right? Anyway, it wasn't looking the way I expected it to be. I was asking him like, why does it look like that? I feel like something is off. And he was trying, I'm trying to find the right word, but he was trying to convince me that that is simply how it works. That was the words verbatim that I remember. And I was pushing back a little bit, like, I don't think that's how RGB works. I know there should be white, there should be black, there should be a range of colors in the middle. And I think after, you know, maybe 5 minutes, not that long, maybe 5 minutes of a bit of pushback, he was like, yeah, I see what you're saying. To me, that's a bit of a red flag, because I feel like when you have to explain to someone that, you know, this looks a little weird, and initially they're a bit defensive, or until you push back and then they finally say, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. It feels a little like, if I didn't push back, you wouldn't have noticed it. But anyway, he's like, yeah, I'm going to call the supplier. And that's the second problem. The supplier they worked with was a company called BAV Group Design, BAV Group Design, something like that. And the company, there's nothing wrong with the company, I don't think. I'm not trying to throw digs at this second company as well. The problem is, I didn't realize that the parts were outsourced or sourced from another supplier. I was under the impression that they do all of this in-house and blah, blah, blah. Not exactly a problem on its own, but the problem is that I had called them. I'd called this company before because I was shopping around. I was trying to see which company should I get my headlights from, you know, and I called them and they had already quoted me like a cheaper price. However, they don't do the installation, of course. I'd have to take it somewhere and get it installed. But when I did the math, I think it was still cheaper if I'd got it from them. Now, I don't remember how much cheaper, but it was noticeably cheaper. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's odd. You know, I didn't realize all of this was like a step by step. Like, you're kind of like the middle person that, you know, puts it together and then installs it. So that's another problem. So they called them, they said that, you know, we're gonna see if they can send us a new set of LED strips and, you know, the rings and so on, so that we can fix this. I'm like, okay, fine, great. They do all of that. A couple of days pass. I bring the car back, and that's another part of the problem. I live in New Jersey at this time. I have to drive back to where I live in New Jersey, then drive back to Brooklyn to drop off the car, then find an Uber to drop me back home to New Jersey, which is expensive, or go straight to work afterward and then come back. It's like a whole mess. I bring the car back again for the second time, and I bring my dad with me this time. So maybe I can say like, all right, am I seeing this? Is it really blue? Like maybe it's just something like my eyes are playing tricks with me. So I bring my dad, and the headlights are still blue when I try to make them white. And again, I'm trying to explain like, yeah, they still look blue. Like, I don't know why it's hard to explain this. You know, I feel like it should be kind of straightforward because it looks blue to me, looks blue to my dad, it looks blue to him apparently. So everyone's all in agreement that it looks blue. So he's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Like, you know, we get the strips from Bob Group, and you know, it's not us. And that's kind of like, it's true, but at the same time, that's not what you want to hear if you've already spent $4,750. That the problem is someone else. If you had told me that you were going to buy this or you're going to source this from another company, it would have given me enough information to make an informed decision. Like, maybe I don't want to go through with this because it's like a series of like, you know, like it's a weird chain of events. Like, you have to get it from them, and then anyway, so that wasn't told to me when I was buying them. And that's part of the problem as well, which is number 3. There were a lot of issues that I went through that wasn't clear to me when I bought them, because when I bought them, he was saying, yeah, this is great. Here's some other cars we've done it to, blah, 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 blah. Now, at this stage, what he told me was that, yeah, we don't usually do this on 2015s, like the 2015 model of the BMW. And I was like, well, why you didn't tell me that when you were, you know, talking up how great it is and this and that. Basically, I was one of the first, if not the first person with this model to get this done. And had I known that there's like a whole other company that's involved, I would have been like, yeah, all right, maybe I should just find another way to get this done or not do it at all. Now here comes another problem, which you probably saw. If you look closely, there's some condensation on the corner here, right? And it's not raining today. It's been pretty dry today, but when it does rain, this condensation covers like half of the light. And it also does it on this one as well. This one is not doing it right now, but sometimes it's the same way. And that's another problem. So, you know, after I explained the whole like color situation, and, you know, I kind of went back and forth with him on that. He was defensive, and he's like, yeah, that's just how it works. I keep calling them, they keep sending the strips. And at that point, he was kind of like saying like, I don't know why they build them this way. I went on the forums at that point, and he told me, or not he told me, the forums were saying like, yeah, some of these companies, they get these strips from China and they kind of mark it up. I didn't know that. You know, if I knew all of this, like this company likely gets the strips from China, then the other company, OneEighty, that I'm working with, they source it from them and then do the work. And it seemed like it was a little bit more expensive if I went through them versus doing it straight from Bob Group. There's that problem. And then finally, the headlights have their own issues with them that I, the consumer, have to deal with. So once I noticed the problems with the condensation on the headlights, I DM'd them on Instagram, showed them the photos, and I, you know, called them on the phone. And one of the first responses, or the questions that the shop owner, OneEighty, the shop owner, asked is, were you driving in the rain? Because it could happen, like that could happen if they get wet and, you know, you're driving in the rain, it builds some condensation and so on. And I thought the question was a little strange, because every car needs to be driven in the rain at some point. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's something I'm trying not to be too emotive about. So yeah, he says, bring it by, we'll take a look at it. So again, I had to drive from New Jersey, like top of New Jersey, basically to the bottom of Brooklyn. It's a whole ordeal. Drop off the car, explain what's going on. He said, yeah, we'll take a look at it, we'll fix it. And I can't remember at what point he had said this, whether I picked up the car or when I dropped it off. He said something along the lines of, well, yeah, every time we have to take off the bumper, we have to like remove the seal on the headlight so we could like take it off, fix it, whatever, and then put it back in, reseal it, and so on. And there was like a slight tinge of like finger pointing in that situation, where it's like, because, and this is my interpretation of events, but basically my interpretation was that every time me, the customer, brings the car back to them to fix it, they have to remove everything, and it's kind of like a burden, and that in itself causes the condensation to build up, because the seal would be like being removed and been resealed every single time. So because I had issues with the colors, which wasn't explained to me, and it's not my fault entirely, they have to remove the bumper and blah blah blah, if you get where I'm going with this. So again, I thought that was weird. That's like problem number 3, or red flag number 3 about the situation. Now it happens again, the condensation builds up again, but there's another issue that comes up, which I showed you before. So now the diodes in the strips, in the eyelid strip, begins to go out. So it'll be like red and green, or blue and purple, or like one of the diodes would go out entirely, like you saw earlier in the video. Now I bring it back for the 4th time, or rather I drop off the car for the 4th time. I call them like, hey, why is this thing going wrong? Like, you know, the colors are messing up now. Mind you, all of this took place in the span of like 6 months. Like the first few problems took place within like a month or 2 months, right? Like it was quick problems. I kept going back and forth like every other week, right? And then after a while, I kind of got like annoyed and like, all right, I'll call them next week. I'll call them next week. I'll call them next week. So like this is a very short timeline. These are supposed to be like lifetime parts. Like a headlight is not something that just goes out unless something goes wrong or you've had it for a very long time. But anyway, now I call them, you know, same situation. Like, yeah, they can just go out like that. Like it can just, because it's like an LED strip and we're getting it from BMW Group Design. This is what he's explaining to me. And it's like, you're not wrong. You're getting this from another company that you didn't build yourself. I fully empathize with that, because they probably didn't expect this situation to happen the way that it did. And for that reason, I do empathize with them. I just wish all of this information was made available up front when I was buying it. Like, let me know you're getting this from another company, so then I can have that in my mind to say, all right, if something goes wrong, I might have to speak to them, or I might have to speak to the other company, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, so I'll bring it back again. They take the headlight apart, they get a new strip from BMW Group Design, they put it back in. Same repeat thing all over again. You know, the condensation is still there, it keeps happening, blah 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 blah. Now there's a 5th time that I went back. So at this point they moved from Brooklyn to Staten Island. The problem now is, so I have what's called a pop-out plate here, right? This is a pop-out plate. Literally I can pull this and move it forward and it'll show my front license plate, right? And I have a key that can like do it electronically without me having to manually do that. Now the problem is, I got that work done from OneEighty back in 2018, and that has lasted me for, at the time, 6 years with no issues. And every time I brought it to them, they were like, wow, these things don't usually last that long. People come in and say, you know, the wires break after a year or 2 years. My brother has had that same thing done to his car as well, and his broke within a year. Mine lasted 6 years because I don't know why. Maybe I clean it or I use it a lot. Like I pop it in and out a lot rather than letting it get stuck and the wires getting dirty or damaged or whatever, right? So it's never been broken. I've been using it over and over and it's always been fine. The battery has always been fine. And I think it costs $300 to do that. That's a completely separate thing that I did years ago. The problem is, when I brought the car back the 5th time to change or fix the headlight situation, they have to remove the bumper like they always do. And they also have to disconnect the wires for that pop-out plate mechanism. I had used it that morning that I was dropping it off because I was driving to the shop, so I had to pop it out. So, you know, in New York, you have to have a front plate visible. I pick up the car. Now it's not working anymore. Now the pop-out plate is not working. My key fob that's supposed to move it in and out doesn't work. And I explained to them, well, it was fine this morning. Like, why is it suddenly not working? And his response, and I remember this 100%, well, they're not supposed to last that long anyway, so the fact that it lasted that long is great, but you got to remember that we're removing the bumper and so on and so on. Understandable. But are you going to fix it? Because it was working when I gave it to you. Whether it lasted this long or not is irrelevant. It means I took care of it. But now you broke it in the process of fixing something that has its own set of issues that I shouldn't have had to. Like, it wouldn't have broken if the whole headlight situation had worked the first time that I got it. Or if I didn't get it at all, this thing would have been working fine. So he's being defensive, like, yeah, we'll give you a discount. And like, but I don't want a discount. It should be fixed because it was working fine when I gave it to you. When I drop off the car, it was working. Just because something broke in your care and you weren't expecting it to break, it's not my fault. It's your fault because you broke it. And at that point, I'm just like, yeah, I can't come back here. So I spent $4,750 for these headlights that continuously give me issues. Now you broke another $300 item. I probably spent, I don't even know, probably like $300 in Ubers because I'm going from New York to Brooklyn. I'm sorry, New Jersey to Brooklyn. So it's like $40 one way, then $40 back. And I had to do that 5 times. Then the times I have to take the toll to pay the toll to go to. It's just a whole lot of extra cost that came with this thing that is ultimately broken. So hopefully that wasn't too much rambling and complaining. I just want to explain that this is the situation that I went through. And I would strongly suggest for anyone watching, do not do this RGB headlight thing. It's a headache. It's a massive headache. Now, if you are one of those lucky people, or maybe I'm just an unlucky person, but if you're one of those people who have had no issues with your RGB headlights, great. I hope that everyone else has no issues. I just want to be the person to explain that this is what I've been through, and you should be cautious if you choose to do the same thing. So as I explained in the beginning of the video, the whole purpose of this video and this YouTube channel in general is to prevent other people from dealing with problems that I am dealing with or have dealt with. So again, it was explained from a factual standpoint. So this is the cost that I paid for the headlights. This is the amount of times I actually had to go back and forth because there were problems. This was the cost of the Ubers from going back and forth. This was the other situation that broke as a result of them taking off the bumper. This was the dialogue that actually was that happened between myself and the shop owner. So take that information, do with it what you will. I don't want this to be a finger pointing or throwing a shop under the bus. However, I do wish that the situation was rectified better, whether it was a partial refund or whatever, because none of that happened. I just went away with this, these broken headlights, and here we are. And yeah, anyway, you can probably end the video here. I've been talking for a long time. I will explain one last thing. I didn't show what they look like at night. They're not very visible if you are 2 or maybe 3 car lengths ahead of if someone is 2 to 3 car lengths ahead of you, they can't see the color. I had my brother follow me and look out his mirror and see if he could see the colors. He couldn't. Although when he's close enough, like right next to me, he can see the colors of the LED strips. That's in the next part of this video. But yeah, I'm gonna end it here and stop talking. If you like the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and all that usual stuff. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.